5-on-5 July 4th celebration party. You're invited. This show commemorates the birth of our nation on July 4th, 1776, which is the date that we celebrate for the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Our war for independence, in fact, was between 6 and 10 years, depending on the historian that you look to. In fact, we were taxed out of existence by the British. They wanted us to finance their French and Indian War expenses. However, what happened is we revolted. We were revolutionaries, we were patriots, and in 1774, we had the Boston Tea Party where we threw 360 tons of tea into the Boston Harbor. Thereafter, the next year, we fought in Lexington and Concord. Remember, Paul Revere went running out on the countryside to say, the British are coming, the British are coming. He was actually sent out to warn Samuel Adams and John Hancock that there was a price on their head and King George III wanted them killed. Now, we have 4 of our founders of our country here today to talk to you. And they are John Hancock, who wrote Bigger Than Life, Betsy Ross, who created our first insignia for the nation to be, and George Washington, our first president of the United States of America, and Abigail Adams, the wonderful wife of the second president of the United States, John Adams. Now, what I am doing here is, we all love hot dogs, and you can't go without eating them for July 4th. But we have 6 different kinds here. We have bangers, which are British pork sausage. This is the white, anemic-looking item here. And why am I including English pork sausage in our July 4th celebration? I'm including it in our July 4th celebration because of the fact today commemorates our banging the heck out of the British. And the banger has 150 calories. Second, we have a chicken hot dog. It has 116 calories. Next, we have a pork hot dog. It has 137 calories. Next, we have a turkey hot dog, and that has 110 calories as well. The darker one is the Hebrew National Fat-Free Hot Dog. It has only 45 calories as compared to the meatless hot dog that has 50. Obviously, if you're counting calories, the Hebrew National Hot Dog is the best one for your money and for your calories. But you also have to take into consideration your sodium content and as well as the cholesterol level. Because of these factors, you should prefer the meatless or veggie hot dog, unless you just gotta have that taste, okay? In which case, you go for the Hebrew National. However, what you can do with these hot dogs is anything imaginable. You can boil them, you can broil them, you can grill them, you can microwave them, you can do anything with them. And of course, you can adorn them with all kinds of condiments, ketchup, all kinds of mustard, Dijon mustard, yellow mustard, specialty deli mustard, onions, chili, salt, mayonnaise. By the way, they have a wonderful safflower mayonnaise that is very, very low calorie. And they have a fat-free mayo that is put out as well. They also have a canola oil mayonnaise, which is also heart healthy. So let me introduce our first hero of our American Revolution, John Hancock, while I go and grill your hot dogs.
My name is John Hancock. I was the last man to sign the Declaration of Independence. I signed my name big and bold and with a flourish because I wanted King George, who had put a price on all of our heads, to be able to read my signature. So when I signed, I said, George, now you can double the price on my head. I was only 39 when I was elected to be the president of the Second Continental Congress in 1776. The 56 delegates declared that the 13 colonies were free and independent states. We severed our ties with Great Britain, and we vowed never to be under oppression again. We mutually agreed and pledged to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Now, we lived very large back then. Oh, yes, we did. And I just loved all the attention. I was very popular. I was raised an orphan, and I was adopted by my wealthy uncle, who was reputed to be the wealthiest man in New England. He took me in, he sent me to Harvard College, where I graduated when I was 17. I helped my uncle in his business, and then I was sent over to England for the coronation of King George III. Not too long after that, my uncle died, and I inherited the biggest estate in all of New England. I was always thrown in with the Loyalists, but I began reading and agreeing with and following the teachings of Samuel Adams, who was known to be the most radical of all the Republicans. But anyway, my sloop, the Liberty, was confiscated by the British because they claimed that I had been taking contraband in and out of the country, which was not true. And that just more inflamed my disdain for the British and increased my efforts of trying to help form a union of these American states. I spent a lot of money on luxuries, but I spent an equal amount on independence. When I was the president of the Second Continental Congress, that lasted for some time, and then later I was elected to be the governor of Massachusetts. But I only stayed in that position for about a year because I had a very bad case of the gout. And so I had to retire, and not long after that I passed away. Now, regarding the gout, we ate a lot of red meats and very, very rich foods, and a lot of shellfish and rich fish. And this builds up the uric acid. The uric acid in your system and causes pain in your joints. Now, I understand now that if I had eaten a lot more fruits and vegetables and berries and nuts, and particularly cherries, that I could have avoided probably ending up with some of the symptoms of gout.
Thank you, John, so much for your wonderful presentation. Now we're on to the second ingredient that is absolutely required for your July 4th. That's hamburgers, of course. I have here 4 different varieties that we're going to be eating today. Salmon burger was very popular in New England for the holidays because they were on the coast. The salmon burger has 110 calories. Second of all, you have the turkey burger, and the turkey burger has 130 calories. Next, with all of these little black spots in it, which is veggies, this is a veggie or a meatless hamburger, and it has 110 calories, just like the salmon. And finally, we have the regular all-American hamburger. This one has 76% fat-free. However, it has 250 calories. So if you are trying to lose weight or watching your waistline, obviously you want to try another alternative to the regular hamburger. We're going to be, in fact, using wheat hot dog buns and wheat hamburger buns. The reason for using wheat is because if you're trying to lose weight, the sugar that is absorbed into your body lasts longer, giving you a lot more energy if you're eating wheat. Second of all, it has lower cholesterol, it has fewer calories, and it is, in fact, a wonderful way to, in fact, try to lose some weight. Now, the hot dog bun has 130 calories to it, and the wheat hamburger bun has 160. A slice of white bread, in fact, has 80 calories to it, and a slice of wheat bread has 70 calories. If you are going to be cooking these, grilling these, whatever, you want to make sure that the temperature inside each of these is at least a certain degree. If you want to eat it rare, you want to make sure it's 150 degrees. If you want to eat it medium rare, or medium, you want to have it 165 degrees. If you want it well done, you want to make sure with a meat thermometer that the inside reads 175 degrees. Now, it's very important for you to be health conscious because at our age, we have to watch out for our health because nobody else is going to do so. Let me now introduce you while I am going to go and grill these wonderful burgers to our next speaker. And that speaker is Betsy Ross. Hi, I'm Betsy Ross, and I am the seamstress who in fact designed and created our first flag for our colonies before the Declaration of Independence was signed. In 1776, George Washington came with Robert Morris and a relative of mine, George Ross, and in fact asked me to design the new flag for the new country that was to be. When they came to me, we already had 2 other flags that were being used on our ships at sea. An appeal to heaven, which was known as the Liberty Tree flag, was used in 1775. Also, the first Navy Jack flag was used in 1775, and it says, "Don't tread on me." When George Washington and Robert Morris and George Ross came to me, they brought me the Grand Union flag that's up there that looks like the British flag. In fact, George Washington said to me, "I used this flag in January of this year in a battle with the British. And when they saw this flag, they didn't attack because they thought we had surrendered. So we have to make sure that our flag is not similar to the British flag." As a matter of fact, in the design there, the red and white stripes are from Washington's coat of arms for his family. Betsy Ross was very savvy. She was very smart. She was only 24 years of age. She was always already a widow. She married 3 times. 2 of her husbands were killed in the American Revolution. Her first husband was killed in a gunpowder explosion, and her second husband was taken captive at sea, and he died in an English prison. So Betsy Ross knew about sacrifice. She also knew if the British caught her helping the revolutionaries and the colonies, that in point of fact, she would be killed. Nonetheless, she went ahead. She designed it in May and June of 1776. And what she did is she created a circle. And that circle represents the 13 colonies that were now to be united. Betsy Ross, in fact, lived to the age of 84. Her last 3 years of her life, she was blind. However, she said, "I have seen everything I need to see. I have seen the birth of a nation." Okay, we are pleased to present to you Thomas Jefferson's original garden pea salad. Thomas Jefferson raised in his Monticello estate over 330 kinds of varieties of vegetables and over 150 kinds of fruits. He would have been labeled a vegetarian today because he loved vegetables so much. But in his White House, during his presidency, the one ingredient that was most ordered was lettuce. And he always said his favorite vegetable was peas. That's why he invented his garden pea salad. Salad was then spelled S-A-L-E-T. There's a lot of ingredients in here. A lot of it is very innovative, based on Thomas Jefferson's creativity. First of all, you have Boston lettuce, which we now call butter lettuce, or butterhead lettuce, and you put it in, and it is very, very sweet lettuce, as a matter of fact. Second of all, he had 2 kinds of apples, heirloom apples and Granny Smith apples. And I am going to be putting the Granny Smith apples together with the red delicious apples in this salad. And as you can see here, I have an abundance of apples. Next item is he had crumpled blue cheese. It was then called blue cheese sippets, as is up there on the poster. And it added some zest to his salads, as a matter of fact. Next, he loved hard-boiled eggs, and he would put this in his dessert. In his desserts, in his dishes, for his breakfast. He loved eggs. Next is his garden peas, which is beautiful garden peas. You need to microwave these for 3 to 5 minutes and to make them crunch, like al dente. Next is, he loved to use fresh garden greens. We have here a variety that we're putting in his dish. We have celery, cilantro, parsley, and Belgian endive, which, by the way, is very, very sweet. And by the way, I think I'm going to be running out of space here on this particular dish. But he loved to use garden greens. Every homemaker had both an herb garden and, a spice garden and a green garden, because that's the way the colonials actually ate. Now, he always used fresh herbs. Every homemaker had an herb garden. And we have here oregano, rosemary, sage, and thyme. And the oregano gives it a pungent taste. The rosemary reminds you of your grandmother's your mother's stew. And the sage reminds you of a beautiful garden. And the thyme smells so wonderful. It smells just like the pines in New Hampshire. Then, of course, he had to add into it tomatoes. They had then heirloom tomatoes. And we are using beefsteak. They didn't have any cherry or grape tomatoes back in those days. Finally, he put mayonnaise on it. I'm going to defer putting the mayonnaise on it until later on when we're sitting down to eat. But as you can see, it ends up being an absolutely beautiful salad. And next, he loved to work with nuts. And what I have done, nuts are heart healthy, but they have a lot of cholesterol and a lot of fat. So what you want to do if you're a nut fanatic is you want to blend them and then sprinkle them over your dishes. That way you get the heart healthy benefit of the nuts, but not the high cholesterol and not the fat. And isn't that beautiful? Sometimes in blending them, you'll get an actual real nut. So here's a real almond for our dish. Finally, what Thomas Jefferson did was he invented his own salad dressings. He created this honey lemon dressing. If you go to the store, you in fact cannot buy it. You cannot buy it because it isn't there. So what I had to do was I had to go and buy a lemon marinade and honey and then liquefy it by putting it in a microwave to try to replicate Thomas Jefferson's original honey lemon dressing for his garden pea salad. And I'm just going to put some on and put it in the little well here for those who want more. And as you can see, here is the finished dish here. And this is without the apples. And I'm going to put the red delicious apples around the corners here on this dish. And I'm also going to put the Granny Smith apples around the corners of this dish. So if you don't want to put the toasted almonds or the honey lemon dressing, this dish over here is what it's going to look like, finished. And this is the finished dish, the way Thomas Jefferson intended it to be. And bon appetit. Now let me introduce you to the first president of the United States of America, George Washington. He was the most important person in our history to gain our independence. Take it away, George.
You know me as the father of our country. Well, I'm not so sure about that. See, my role was mainly military. I was trained in military matters. Back then, we were suffering under tremendous taxation put on us by the British. So at first, we boycotted their goods. We wanted the freedom to grow our own crops, handle our own merchandise, so we boycotted. And what did? They sent over German mercenaries. And what did? They taxed us even more. So we really boycotted. In fact, we threw a party. You heard about it, the Boston Tea Party. We threw tons of British tea into that Boston harbor. No taxation without representation. So our political leaders, like Ben Franklin, John Hancock, John Adams, Samuel Adams, and others, well, they formed the First Continental Congress for the sole purpose of protesting these taxes, trying to find some kind of relief. So they appealed to King George III over in England for relief. He said no. So the Second Continental Congress was formed. And that Congress drew up our first draft of the Declaration of Independence. It also formed our Continental Army. And on June of 1775, in the summertime, I was installed as our commanding general. I wanted no pay, wouldn't accept any pay, but I was proud to serve. Now, our Continental Army was not like the British Army. No. The British Army was well-fed, well-equipped, well-uniformed. They fought straight up and straight ahead. Well, our Continental Army was not like that. We were made up of common people, common men, farmers, fishermen, merchants. They had no formal military training, weren't even militia, but they wanted to be free. Now, many of these men, in fact, most of them have been around guns their whole lives, hunted their whole lives. Some of them were crack shots, sharpshooters, and we didn't fight like the British. No, sir. We used tree lines, boulders, bushes. We fought our way, and we fought to win. Now, when the 56 representatives from the 13 colonies met, it was for the sole purpose of signing a formal Declaration of Independence. You know the date, July 4th, 1776. Now, I wasn't there. I was in Manhattan, New York, getting ready to fight off the British. But 2 days later, when that declaration was delivered to me, I read it to the men, and there were cheers and there were tears. We were finally going to be free of British rule. We were going to be our own country, our own republic. And in that December, 1776, for some reason the British, maybe they didn't like our cold New England winters, because they got back in their ships and they went back to England, and leaving behind German mercenaries. They were trying to hold down the fort in Trenton, New Jersey. Now, the only thing separating those mercenaries from my army was the Delaware River. I had to come up with a battle plan, how to get across to the other side. So I called out all of the fishermen from the army. And they came up with an idea. They would use boats, and when nightfall came, they would row our troops back and forth all the way across to the other side until everybody was in position. That's exactly what we did. About 8 o'clock the next morning, we visited those mercenaries with a gigantic surprise, a very large Christmas gift. We attacked. We took 900 German mercenaries prisoner, 900. See, that was the turning point in our war for independence. In August of 1777, we paraded 16,000 Continental soldiers right past Independence Hall. 16,000 men. I'll never forget that day. I was on my white stallion. Major General Lafayette, the Frenchman, he was so instrumental in training our troops. So instrumental in so many things. He was like a son to me. We rode down that road together. And these men were beat up, they were wounded, but they were proud. Many of them were in buckskins, torn uniforms, rags. Some of them had even taken off uniforms from dead British soldiers. But they were proud and they marched. They sang loudly, they drummed loudly, they fifed, they limped, but we marched. So by December 1776, the British had moved forward, occupied our capital at Philadelphia, our new capital, and I was at Valley Forge. It was cold, wintertime. We were about out of medicine, food, supplies. We were in bad shape. 2,500 of my men had already died. Another 2,500 quit and went home. Left me with about 6,000 troops, and they were tough. But I want you to know that 1 out of 3 soldiers, 1 out of 3 of those 6,000 had no shoes. In these kind of conditions in wintertime, 1/3 of the Continental Army without shoes. We were in very, very bad shape. In fact, we needed God's help badly. So I got on my knees and I prayed to God for his help. And we hung on. And then the French came to our aid again. They came back with more ships, more men, more supplies, more money. Without the French's help, I don't think we'd have won our war for independence. They were instrumental. So, by 1783, it was finished. All the papers had been signed. We were now our own country officially. We were our own republic, free from British rule. But it had taken 8 long years of war, 8 long years. 5 years later, I was chosen to be our first president, and I served 2 terms. But you know, at first they wanted me to be king over the colonies. I said, absolutely not. No kings. We just came from that. We just fought against that. No kings. We'll have a republic. So I served 2 terms as our president. And at the age of 87, I died at Mount Vernon, but I lived a long, happy life, fulfilled life, proud to fight for this country, proud to fight for our freedom, proud to fight for our independence. So on this Independence Day, think about your freedom. Think about your independence. Think about what it cost. Think about the lives that were lost. And have a good 4th of July.
As you know, 5 on 5 is premised on the American Cancer Society's advice that we should eat 5 fruits and 5 vegetables every day in order to avoid getting cancer. It's not a guarantee, but it's the best thing possible. I have in fact added 5 vegetables to our potato salad. The Department of Agriculture has said that potato is not to be counted as a vegetable. It has very little nutritional value to it, other than the skins. This recipe, in fact, is using Idaho petite potatoes because they have red skin and there's a lot of antioxidants. The darker the skin of the vegetable or the fruit, usually the more antioxidants and the vitamins in it there is. So I'm going to be using the little petite Idaho potatoes, which you put in a microwave or boil to a crunch, al dente. And furthermore, what we're going to be adding is asparagus, broccoli, just the broccoli tips, okay? Most people don't like broccoli because the stalks are very tough. And as a senior citizen, many of us do not have a lot of our teeth left. So you want to use just the tips of the broccoli. I have also used green beans in this recipe and cut them up into small portions. Once again, you microwave them till al dente texture, which is about 3 to 5 minutes. By the way, here is my completed dish with paprika and dill weed and garlic salt and sea salt and pepper on top of it. And what you're going to be seeing me do here is prepare finely Brussels sprouts in our recipe for potato salad, which means that with the celery, you in fact have 5 of your vegetables for the day. How about that, a potato salad with 5 vegetables in it? You can use bacon bits, which I have in my recipe. Next, we have celery, of course. Can't have a potato salad without celery. Furthermore, I am putting cilantro in it. Cilantro has a nice pungent taste to it that adds to the flavor of potatoes. Basically, potatoes have no taste at all. And what you have to do is add things to it to give it real taste. And finally, I am using half mayo and half vanilla low-fat yogurt in this combination. Mayonnaise is heart dangerous, and you should not consume a lot of it. You can get mayo or Smart Beet, which is almost fat-free, and you can also put half and half, as I have done here, vanilla low-fat yogurt, half of it, with mayo, the low-fat mayo, the other half of it. And so I'm going to be combining it here. And it looks as if I didn't put enough mayonnaise here for this particular dish. And we'll have to add some later to make it look like a potato salad, like this dish over here. And finally, we have onions. You can't have a potato salad without onions. Now, given the fact that I have not put in here more mayonnaise or low-fat yogurt, this is basically the ingredients that are going in Liz's potato salad. This is a heart-healthy dish. It is very good for you, and it will make your July 4th a start in a new direction in your life. So have a very happy July 4th and enjoy my potato salad. Now let's go to our final speaker, Abigail Adams, who is the wife of our first Vice President of the United States and our second President of the United States. She made it for the ladies. Take it away, Abigail.
Hello, my name is Abigail Adams. I am the wife of the first Vice President who became the second President of our United States of America, John Adams. He signed the Declaration of Independence. I'm also the mother of the sixth President of our country, John Quincy Adams. I am the first woman to be both a wife and a mother to a president of this country. During my husband's presidency, I was referred to as Mrs. President or Her Majesty. Of course, it was meant to be derogatory, but I considered it a compliment. And my husband, John, of course, he laughed about it. I was considered to be one of the most knowledgeable women in the colonies because I was an avid reader. I was also very active in women's rights, human rights, abolition of slavery, and I said to my husband, don't forget the ladies. Let's treat them better than they've been treated by our ancestors. John said he married me because I could discuss anything with him, poetry, politics, philosophy, history, etc. John and I were very close friends through our 54-year marriage, and my last words to him were, don't grieve, my dear friend, my dearest friend. It won't be long now. He died 8 years later, on the 50th anniversary of the birth of our nation, July 4th, 1826. That same day, his friend and rival, Thomas Jefferson, also joined him in death. These two men took part in writing the Declaration of Independence. But ironically, they died on the same day, within a few hours of each other, on the 50th anniversary of the birth of our nation. Today we celebrate our country's anniversary, as well as the deaths of these two men that gave their all and their last bit of devotion for you. Thank you very much.
Finally, for our finale, a low-calorie, low-cholesterol, low-fat dessert just for your July 4th holiday. I have invented a red, white, and blue meringue dessert. The way you fix it is you whip up egg whites into a meringue texture. You wash off with soap and water your blueberries, and you put them in, and then you add maraschino cherries. Maraschino cherries don't have any pits in them. You have to remove the stems from them, but they're the right red for our holiday. And here is your dessert. This is our show to celebrate the creation of our nation, and we hope you have enjoyed it. For the final words, I would like to introduce you to Marie O'Brien, who was born in France.
I am Marie. I was born in France, and I would like to add that without the money from the French and the training that Lafayette gave to the fighting men of the Revolution, teaching them some clever ways to outwit the British soldiers, we probably wouldn't have the United States of America today. I'm so proud of being a citizen. And au revoir.
If you would like to respond to our program, criticize it, or have suggestions, please write to us at 5on5food@inbox.com. We want to thank you for watching and listening to us today about how you as a senior citizen can be healthy eating 5-on-5 dishes. Remember why they call us seniors? It's because, in fact, we are superior.